This is Target Score Weekly with Joey Slattery and Taylor Allen. Welcome into episode 10 of Target Score Weekly. I'm Joey Slattery with Taylor Allen. Coming off a pretty big episode last week, Taylor. We had the Chuck Swirsky on Target Score Weekly for a very candid and fun interview. And we have another big one today. Former NBA player, former Canadian Olympian. You can't say that about a lot of people with Team Canada just qualifying for Paris 24 in this FIBA World Cup. Yeah, Todd MacCulloch, the Winnipegger himself who played on the Sixers, then for Team Canada, has played with Steve Nash, Allen Iverson. He was with us earlier, gave us his takes on the tournament and what he expects for Paris and much more. That coming up in just a few minutes. But Taylor, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I wish I could say, we're just telling you this off the air, but I wish I could say I got up at 3:30 in the morning and I watched the game live, and that was my plan. That was my goal. And I think in my younger years, I would have done that. But as I was getting ready for bed, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I got it in me. So I had to watch the game, recorded the next day after knowing the score and whatnot. But it was still just as exciting, still just as fun. And it was just as exciting and fun talking about that result with Todd MacCulloch. Like you said, the last time Canada made it to the Olympics, made some noise in men's basketball was with Todd and, of course, the help of Steve Nash as well. So it was really cool to see how excited he is about this news and everything, too. So another great episode.
New set of stars for sure. I was up every day. You might be younger than me in age, but you're older than me in spirit, man. I suffered. I really am. The only one I missed was the Lebanon game. Was in the first round. It was the second game, I think, and they smoked them by 50. That was the game where they set the record in assists. So I did wake up for the Serbia game, which was not as fun as waking up for the Team USA game for the bronze medal. That's for sure. But it was a heck of a tournament, man. The fact that, and I'll say this, it felt like a small community on Twitter. The people that woke up across Canada to watch this game, which was kind of fun too. But you look at this tournament, there were a lot of people that were up at, I know it's 4:30 Eastern time, 3:30 here. In Pacific time, it's 1:30 in the morning, so you could really just stay up for the game. But that's how exciting this team was, Tay. That we talked about this last episode. I don't remember the last time I was ever even remotely close to being excited for the World Cup of basketball in an Olympic year, especially. It was always kind of that hope. I hope we pull it off. I hope they can go far. There was an expectation this time. And I said last episode, I was willing to go with it, right? Good or bad. I was taking it all in. That Serbia loss was tough. But man, Serbia is a really, really good team. That was a game where I just felt like they had Canada's number through and through. But we really lucked out with Germany pulling off the upset on the U.S. It gave us that Canada versus U.S. bronze medal final. And man, the composure of the team in that game is what stuck out for me. You faced all the adversity you could have. You had guys in foul trouble. You had the U.S. It looked like you had the game locked up with a few seconds left, up 4, and then there's the missed foul shot that ends up being a 3 to tie the game.
Here we go again. That was honestly, the exact feelings. Yep, I've seen this movie before. Where they get our hopes up, Canada, and this is going to be the one or whatever, and then that happens, and it's yep. Of course it happened. That's just what always happens, seemingly, whenever Canada basketball has a big game. But over time, it's they so quickly forgot about that, and they kicked the Americans' butts in overtime. They dominated. So to very quickly put that up behind them, not everyone could do that. That was, the game was over. Mikal Bridges made one of the best plays you could ever see. That happens. That situation happens so often, right? Where, you got to miss the free throw, then grab the rebound, hit the 3. It's okay. And that happens. Never works. And he misses the free throw, grabs his own rebound, and then runs out, hits a corner 3. It was one of the best plays you'll ever see. But for Canada to just so quickly put that behind them, that sucked, but we're still in overtime, still got a chance here. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looked like that didn't bother him whatsoever. He was lights out in overtime like he was the entire tournament, and so was Dylan Brooks. So, yeah, I know the Americans were missing some names and whatever, but so were we. So, bronze medal, and well done.
And it's an entirely different game. And I think that's the one thing we saw in the tournament. Like, there are shooters around the world that you've never heard of because they don't play in the NBA, but they are really, really good. And, looking at teams like Serbia, and you see just how important the World Cup is to that country. Like, this wasn't about the Olympics. It was about, winning this tournament. They came one game short, losing to Germany, who won the tournament, won the World Cup. But no, it was a very exciting tournament. And that game, particularly for me with Canada, was just that composure. It was the worst possible scenario. It was here we go again. But there was a moment where Kelly Olynyk throws up the prayer with like 0.6 seconds left, and it just misses, right? And there was this thing where it was like, oh my God, it was that close. But it wasn't like an, oh my God, we blew it. It was kind of like, oh man, like, no, I can't let it end that way, right? And they just kept their foot on the gas in the overtime period. I mean, Dylan Brooks, come on, man. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course. I mean, this guy has upped his stock in the NBA. He was probably the best player, one of the best players in the tournament for sure, if not the best player. Up there with Anthony Edwards with the States up until leading up to the bronze medal game. But Dylan Brooks, man, he went through it at the end of this season, the way his team was eliminated from the playoffs, and then he signs the big contract with Houston. A lot of criticism as to what he's going to provide. He's known for his defense, but man, 39 points in the bronze medal game against the USA. Again, when you play the USA, like, those players are everyday NBA guys, right? Like, I understand not all their names were there, but that's an all-star team. That is different. He went up against guys, his peers, and said, no, I am better than all of you. This is why I signed my big contract in Houston. Remember my name. Don't remember me for the quote that didn't go my way in the playoffs against LeBron James. This is what I'll be remembered for. It was the Dylan Brooks game. It was like, that's what I'll always remember. The bronze medal game is the Dylan Brooks game.
And this has always been a pro Dylan Brooks podcast. Let's not forget. We've talked about him several times, and we've talked about how there was people online even, during that playoff, I shouldn't say run because it wasn't a run, the playoff series against the Lakers where Dylan, he talked the talk but didn't really walk the walk against LeBron and the Lakers. But there's people online, I remember after that happening, saying, oh, I'm so embarrassed that this guy's Canadian. And for those people that were saying things like that, they got to be eating their words and deleting those tweets now, because that was one of, if not the best performance by a Canadian in a basketball game on that stage ever. Totally. 39 points. He broke Carl Ridd, who is a Winnipegger. He set it back in 1954 against the Philippines. The scoring record by a Canadian in a World Cup game. Carl Ridd had 37 points. And there was no 3-point line back then, and that game didn't go to overtime. So, Dylan's record, I'm not saying it's tainted, but he had a couple more minutes, and he had the benefit of the 3-point line, but still to go 7 for 8 from 3. And I think his only miss was he hucked a half court heave, I think at the end of the second quarter or third quarter, something like that. He was lights out, absolutely lights out. And again, like you said, this guy was like kind of the joke of the NBA. Everyone was raking on this guy, saying, oh, he's going to be playing in China in a couple of years. I don't think so. Defensive player of the tournament, player of the game in third place game, in a game loaded with NBA guys. Like we said, Americans were missing guys, but Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, they still had some dudes. So
hey, they're players, man. Like, those guys are dudes. And the other thing too, I'm not all up on my 1954 World Cup rosters and level of play. But
you call yourself a basketball fan? You're not up on your 1954 Canadian hoops? Come on, man.
I am gonna say though, it might be a little more impressive that he did this against the USA squad filled with NBA players, regardless if it took overtime or a 3-point line. And I'll further that by saying
that's fair.
The defense that he had to play throughout this week, or the 2 weeks, whatever it was, the tournament, guarding guys like Luka Doncic and like basically everybody on Serbia, because it wasn't just what's his name? I was going to say Bogdan. Bogdan. What's his name? It's
Bogdanovic
right now.
Bogdanovic.
Yeah, the guy that plays for the Hawks. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like, they had some real players. Like, that team was the energized. I'm shocked they didn't beat Germany. Like, Germany was impressive against the States, but I thought Serbia, like, when the fourth quarter came around, those guys were just Energizer bunnies. It did not stop, and all of them were so good. Like, their ball movement, they were all threats. They were all shooting. And then he was on that, right? And then you got to come back from the disappointment of losing that game and probably taking it a bit personally. But man, like, what a rebound, right? And then, like we said, that whole overtime, it didn't affect them at all. So congratulations to Canada. First ever medal at the World Cup, a bronze, and that sets them up nicely as they've qualified for Paris 24. The first time Canada will be in the Olympics since the year 2000, which was in Sydney, Australia. I still remember it. That was probably right when I started to really love basketball. So the impact this is going to have on the younger generation that are just getting into basketball is going to be huge. And we have a guest on our show today who is part of that very team, who has that unique perspective of being an NBA player, having to play in this qualifying tournament and then qualifying for the Olympics. That is Todd MacCulloch, and he joins us right now on Target Score Weekly. Todd, thank you so much for making the time for us here on Target Score Weekly. We appreciate you having on board. Pretty exciting time in Canadian basketball. The Canadian Olympic team, we can say that. We have a team going to the Olympics for the first time since, someone on this podcast was on the team back in 2000.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and they've been trying hard, and they've been coming very, very close, and they finally got it done. They have plenty of talent. They put it to good use. Great coaching, great execution. Nothing was easy, but they never quit. Even down 12 against Spain in the in the fourth quarter, they were able to continue to fight, and I think they all really wanted this, and you could tell. And it's been really exciting to see how well they played together and how they all had a common goal, and they didn't really care who put the ball in the basket. Just one of them, they just needed to work together, and it was very impressive, and it made me very proud. And I think they all have a bright future together as a core. And I've got big expectations for them next summer, and I think they're going to enjoy the whole process.
Todd, what have you're our source right now for the United States. What's the last 24 hours been like down there? Are people up in arms? How could we lose to Canada of all countries? What's the vibe like down there right now?
I haven't been listening to that too much. I've just been just basking in the glow of the Canadian glory, and just corresponding with friends and family back home, my dad and my friends from Winnipeg, and former teammates and everyone. So I haven't heard anything from the other side. I'm just feeling a lot of pride, and then of course Canadians are we're a proud nation, and basketball has become very important to the country, and we've always known how much talent we had, and now that's shown in the results, and we're on the world stage. And if you look at the results of this tournament, one of the best basketball countries in the world, which is pretty exciting to say.
So you have a unique perspective in this, Todd, because you played for Team Canada in the Olympics as well as the qualifier to get there. Taking all that into account, it's been almost 25 years since we've last been to the Olympics for basketball. We've had a few close calls throughout the years. How impressive was this feat for this team, knowing the disappointments, the long time since we've last been there, and able to do it not only to qualify, but win a medal and do so against the United States for the bronze medal?
Just a massive undertaking. Obviously, the mission was very clear. The mission was get to Paris, and for them to, it's never going to be easy. I mean, I think on paper, when you looked at this roster, people probably said, like, this is a done deal. This is going to happen. They will qualify, but then you have to go and play the games. And sometimes they looked really good against France and played really well early, and then you stumble against a team like Brazil, and things are on paper aren't exactly how they play out. It's a game. There's foul trouble. Sometimes shots don't go in as much as you want them to. So that was never, part of the plan to lose that game, which put so much pressure on them to beat Spain. And the country responded. And you go up against the number one ranked basketball country in the world, and you go down, and you're able to win a game like that. There was so much pressure on them. There was, I think they did what's very difficult, is to realize how important this game was, but not to put that much pressure on themselves. They still have to be themselves, and that pressure mounted even more after that Brazil loss. And so when they were able to win against Spain, I think they were able to just realize their mission was accomplished. But then, hey, we're still in this thing. It's not enough just to qualify. So let's see if we can go make some noise and win a medal on the world stage. And beating the U.S. team is something that I played 93 games in international basketball for Team Canada. several of those against the United States, never a win, never really a close call. So for Canada to somewhat close the gap and to be able to compete on that level and go to overtime, and after a very impressive play for the U.S. to tie it, to not let the momentum get in their way, to get refocused. And so it seems like this team is able to just water under the bridge when things don't go well, and let's regroup, let's not dwell on the past, and let's move forward. So I've been pretty impressed with their maturity and their just the way that they handle themselves and the way they play together. So I like this team a lot.
Todd, you've played in NBA finals, you've played in March Madness, you know what it's like to play in high pressure situations. But when you're playing for your country, whether it's in qualifying or at the Olympics itself, how does that pressure kind of compare to, what you face in the NBA and whatnot?
It's just different. I think when depending on where you're playing and what far off country, you really you have your country behind you, but in that locker room you just have those guys with you, and you don't know who the referees are going to be. You don't know if you're going to be able to communicate with them in the same language, and so you don't know how physical the game is going to be. So there's a lot of questions. And what you can count on is the effort from your teammates and the execution and the training and how hard they prepared. And so it's there's so much pride when you're playing for your country. I mean, it's one thing to play for your college, another thing to play for your professional team. That's a team that drafted you. Sometimes, if you're a free agent, you made a choice. But when it's your country, and there's so much national pride. And there was the whole country of Canada really rooting for this team, and for them to accomplish that goal and have the whole country celebrate and have so much to look forward to, have a whole year to get ready for what's going to be an incredible basketball summer next summer. So just an incredible couple of weeks of play, and them rising to the occasion and just meeting these incredible goals.
Last time Canada had a superstar, in the NBA also playing for Canada was probably Steve Nash. And you look at this particular, roster where you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who, a lot of people would say probably had the best tournament out of everybody in the World Cup. Dylan Brooks, another guy who was huge. RJ Barrett coming out. I mean, what was your thoughts on their performances? Especially when you look at a guy like Dylan Brooks, who, in the NBA season took a little bit of flack, signed with Houston, after the comments he made during the playoffs, guarding LeBron James and stuff like that. And then to come out and really establish his name on the international stage, while Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, blew up really internationally. I mean, what does that say for them, and where do they go from here, I guess, now that they've kind of had that global stardom?
I think you just keep rolling. So obviously those guys, if they're playing in the NBA, I think there are 7 NBA players on the roster. So they're playing night in and night out. They're playing against teammates from all across the world. They're playing against. They're not overcome by the limelight. They're not scared about what is it like to play in the NBA, to play against other players. They feel a part of it. They feel like those guys are playing in the best league in the world, and then the rest of that roster are going to be playing internationally, and there's some incredible basketball talent throughout the world. So there's no they're not a deer in headlights, and so I feel like Team Canada feels like they can compete with anyone, particularly if you have the best player in the tournament and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander getting some MVP votes in the NBA. Having that talent, the ability to create, to be able to score himself or to create opportunities is Nash-like. And so whenever Nash played for the national team back then, we always knew that we had a chance. Whatever tournament it was, whatever qualifying, we knew if he was on the roster, he is going to elevate our team, and he's going to elevate the play of everyone on our squad. And I think Shai has that same impact. And then you've got Dylan Brooks playing great defense and also great offense with 39 points. And, Kelly Olynyk and his commitment to the program, and he's been there through thick and thin, and to see those guys get rewarded. And obviously RJ Barrett, how talented he is. I played with his dad, Rowan, in Sydney, and just a great teammate and a true Canadian. And so it's all of those ties are important. And so I really hope this core group will stick together, and having an experience like this is going to bond them forever. And I think it's going to make them want to come back and put on that jersey again and try and get back on the podium next summer.
It was nice to see Phil Scrubb get that time too, some meaningful minutes. And sorry, Taylor, just one more question on that note. How difficult is that transition going from playing, NBA night in and night out to having to go to the FIBA game, which is much different. It's a shorter game. There was a lot of controversy on Twitter with the calls for people watching FIBA for the first time. That can be frustrating. But how hard is it as an NBA player to make that transition to FIBA rules?
I think what's difficult is the schedule, and I don't know exactly. I just know I think in Puerto Rico when we were trying to qualify for the City Olympics, I think it was 10 games in 11 days or something crazy like that you're just not used to. I think in the NBA in an 82 game series you might have 22 back-to-backs or something, and in this one it's back to back to back to back to back, and then maybe you get a day off. And so I think depth is really important. I think you need to count on your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. I mean everyone on the roster, and you have to hope that you don't have any injuries. So it's really difficult, and so you have to get your rest. You have to prepare. And you have to take advantage of your opportunities, because all of those games matter so much, and not just the result of the game, whether it's a win-loss, but the points for and against. So you've got to play through the final buzzer, because it all matters in these international competitions. So it does take some getting used to, but fortunately, this is a team that's been through some wars, and now they're coming out the other side, and they're a tough team. They're not scared of anybody.
Todd, when was the first time that you played for Team Canada? And do you remember getting that call, or whether it was a coach telling you in person, letting you know that you made Team Canada, you're going to be wearing the red and white? Do you remember that?
I do remember it. I was a senior. I was a senior in high school. I was going into my senior year of high school, and I was pretty involved with the YMCA. And in the previous summers, I had done canoe trips, and I'd done a 2-week trip, and then I'd done. I think there was a 3-week canoe trip, and that was only if you got invited, and that was a source of pride. It was as if you'd sort of made it, and you had been a good teammate in a sense. And I was invited to go on a 3-week canoe trip that summer, and I had to pull out at the last second. Wasn't able to do it, and felt like I was missing out on an opportunity. But what it did do is it freed up my summer to play for the junior national team. And Jay Triano was the coach, and an amazing person, an amazing coach. And I was so thrilled to make that team. And I remember we had windbreakers. They were black with red and white, and they had Canada on. I remember telling the coaching staff, I'm never taking this thing off. I had so much pride to wear something that represented my country, and had such a good experience. It basically set the stage for me. Like, this is what I'm doing every summer, and I was hoping that Coach Triano would get would end up on the big national team, and that I could develop into a player that could make that. And so was really happy when he got the job. And I knew what it was like to play with him, and I think a lot of other guys, jumped at that opportunity as well. So I had a lot of pride right from the beginning, and it was a foregone conclusion. In the summertime, we're all going to meet up in Etobicoke, and we're going to practice, and we're going to go somewhere in the world, and we're going to try and make the country proud. And I feel like we did that in qualifying for Sydney, and then throughout the Olympics. I think we brought a lot of excitement, and in a lot of ways challenged for a medal, even though we didn't make it to the medal round.
Yeah, that was an incredible run you guys had. I think you went 5-2, and the quarterfinal game you're going up against a very tough France team, and sadly they came out on top. But I was kind of watching some highlights to that game, and the game's ending. Steve Nash is walking off the court, and he has tears running down his eyes. Like, you just tell how much that game, that tournament representing Canada meant to him. So just in that experience, with Steve, what kind of jumps out the most to you, or what you kind of learned about Steve Nash, and even yourself as well, obviously, during the qualifying and the Olympics and the whole journey there?
I think just what a competitor Steve is, and how much better he made us all, and what as great a player he is, what a great person he is, a great teammate, and how much he cared. And he led by example, and he would have had a long NBA season, but he was willing to give up all of those nice things in the NBA, and we weren't staying in the best places. We would fly coach, and Steve, I remember a couple instances where he would give me a first class ticket and let me sit in his seat, and he would go back and take my coach seat in the middle. That was the kind of teammate he was. He didn't care about nice things. I mean, if we had a school bus, instead of a Greyhound bus, he was sitting on the bag strumming a guitar. He didn't care about those things. All he cared about was, let's be together, let's work hard, and let's perform. And so he was just the ultimate competitor and the ultimate teammate. And it taught me a lot about leadership and just how much fun you can have, and how your success can also be parlayed. That you don't have to, you be serious when it's time to be serious, but you can also have a good time at practice and get better. And I think it made us all want to be a part of that team. So I learned a lot about who he was as a person and how much better he made us all as a country.
Do you still have that jacket?
I do, actually. It's in the closet over there. It's a little tight these days, but I do. It's in the closet with all my jerseys and things. Still got it. I won't get rid of it.
Awesome. That's awesome. Just one last question before we get into target time. Looking to this team now as they look forward to Paris 24, obviously there are some notable absences on this team, Jamal Murray being one, maybe even Corey Joseph. What's the biggest thing this team needs to address if they want to have this success in the Olympics? Because as we've seen on social media today, the United States not very happy they came home without a medal and are thinking there might be a redemption team, a redeem team again coming for 2024.
I think for Canada, you just try and keep that core together. And obviously, Jamal Murray is an incredibly talented player, and arguably the second best player on an NBA championship team. And so to have him and Shea in the backcourt likely be the best backcourt in the world for that tournament. So hopefully he's able to play. So I think they just keep building, and I think they, as soon as the NBA season ends for those guys, hopefully they can get together and really just focus on the mission. I know when we went to Puerto Rico and tried to qualify for the Olympics, when we did it, all of a sudden our goals changed. Okay, it's not enough for us just to make it. We want to go there and we want to medal, and how do we prepare for success, and how do we go beat Australia in Australia? And so I think with Team Canada playing at the level that they're playing, and getting a bronze medal at the World Cup, I think they already know that they can play with anybody. And so that confidence level is there. And I think they just, as much time as they can get together and as many pre-Olympic tournaments they can play, I think that's just going to make them better. They're going to become even more familiar with each other. But I think those guys are going to be bonded, even throughout this NBA in season when they see each other, when they play each other, they're going to have this, the experience of not only a berth to the Olympics, but a bronze medal in the World Cup of basketball, which is it's a big deal to be on that podium.
I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, and I just want to ask one quick question, Todd, before we go to target time. I think something that people often say is, why isn't this guy playing for Team Canada? Why isn't that guy playing for Team Canada? Talking about these NBA guys, of course, but maybe could you take us through how big of a grind that is, playing this NBA season and then, spending the summer with your national team, and then before it's right back to the NBA again. What did you find after those summers with Team Canada? Did you feel the impacts of that early on in the NBA season, or what did you find?
Yeah, it could be a grind, physically on your body, depending on whether you made it to the playoffs in the NBA, depending on I was lucky enough to play in 2 finals in 4 years, and so I got to play into middle of June, and by that time it was time to go play with the national team. So there was very little downtime. So on the upside, you stay in shape, you stay strong, you stay sharp, and so when you get back to training camp the next year, you've already been playing competitive basketball at a high level against professionals all throughout the world, and you're ready. And I think having the NBA season and playing with those kind of athletes and some of the best basketball players on the planet, that made you better for international basketball the next summer. So I think it is a real commitment. And grind is one word, but I think we had such a good experience because we liked being together. When it was tough on your bodies, but we had so much fun. It was something that we look forward to. And obviously the kind of success that this team has had, that's going to lead to positive experiences for those players. And they're going to want to get back together and play again. So I think you have to really want it, and and it needs to be an important thing for you, because the NBA season can be long, and it also depends on injuries. Are you feeling good? Did you finish the season unscathed, or do you need to rehab and think about your contract situation? So every year, the pieces change a little bit. And are you secure? Do you have a long-term contract, or do you need to make sure that you're healthy? And so I think there's a lot of things that players need to factor in. But I think it just comes down to who wants to play and who can play. So I love the core that we have, but if we can add a few pieces, that's just going to help our chances even further.
Awesome. Todd, are you ready for target time?
I don't know if I am, but I think I am. I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
All right, let's go for it. All right, Taylor, I'll start this time because you started last time. Todd, what's the hardest part that people might not know about when it comes to playing internationally in the summers? Off-season for NBA players, right? What's the hardest part about playing in the summer internationally?
I think it might just be all the unknowns, maybe some of the travel or what the accommodations might be like, and I think just the physicality, just how physical the game is, and what one set of referees might let go, and the other ones might be calling ticky-tack fouls, and you find yourself in that. So I would say probably the inconsistency. I think the NBA sort of has their, the referees that meet and they get evaluated and then they get feedback, and I think it brings them closer to a norm of, this is a point of interest and this is something we're focusing on. Whereas, if you're playing in Australia and then you go play in the Philippines and then you go here, I don't think that I think there's a lot of differences in what you may or may not be able to get away with. So I think the quicker you're able to learn how you want to be the team to set the tone. And if you realize that this is, the refs aren't going to let us get away with much, we need to back off and be able to play accordingly. So I think it's just not quite knowing what the refs are going to let you get away with. And so this Canadian team, they weren't afraid to be physical. They weren't afraid to get after it, and hence their success. So I think the refs let them play in this tournament, and it was good to see.
Todd, we all know your love for pinball, and the proof is literally right behind you as you have a couple machines behind you. But if you walk into an arcade and all the pinball machines are taken, what's the next move? What's the next move for you? What machine are you going to?
If all the pinball machines are taken and the arcades are available?
Yeah.
I would try and find a Pac-Man Battle Royale machine. I don't know if you've found that or if there's somewhere in Winnipeg you go check it out. But it's a relatively new game. It's maybe a decade old. It's a 4-player Pac-Man game, and so you're playing to be the last Pac-Man standing. You get a power pellet, you get bigger and faster, and then you chase down your Pac-Man friends and you eat them, and you make them sit out. So it's the battle for the best Pac-Man. So that is my favorite arcade video game if pinball's all occupied.
Okay, good choice. Awesome. Good choice.
All right, now you're an Olympian in basketball. If you could be an Olympian in any other sport but basketball, what sport would it be?
It would be in surfing, and I think it became an Olympic sport recently. And I went to the big man camp in Hawaii when I first got drafted by the Sixers. And I've always wanted to be a surfer. I love the surfer lifestyle. I love the stoke. I love the ocean. And I thought at 7 feet, I'll never be able to surf. I had this idea that you had to go from a prone position to popping up, and you have to like push yourself up and you're standing. And I was like, I'm as much of an athlete as I am, and I'm in the NBA. I won't be able to go from a laying position to I'm up. So I'm at the big man camp, and we've gotten done with a workout, and I see a guy on the beach saying, "Hey man, you want to take a surf lesson?" This is Waikiki Beach. And I said, "No, that'd be a waste of money. I'll never get up." And he's like, "Money back guarantee. If you don't get up, money back." And I said, "What percentage your students get up?" 100%. 100% guarantee, money back. Okay, here's my $35. So he pulls out a 13-foot board, longboard, and teaches me how to surf. And I get up. He told me this is a nice steady wave. You just want to just go up in stages. It doesn't have to be all at once. Don't pop up. So I'm standing on this board and I'm hitting right for a kid, and I don't want to hit him, but I also don't want to jump off a surfboard when I waited my whole life to get up on it. Ended up kind of slamming into him a little bit. He was okay, and I got up and I said, "This is the best day of my life. I'm proposing to my wife today." So later that night after dinner, we walked back down the beach and I proposed to my wife. So I was like, got up a surfboard, best day of my life. Let's make it, the best day of my life by proposing to my wife. So
that's awesome.
Surfing would be pro if I could do it, but I can't. So that's fine.
It's got a special meaning in your life beside basketball. That's cool. That's really cool.
My next one has to be, I think, about the Winnipeg Sea Bears, because for those who don't remember their first game of the season, they played a video of you on the big screen, just welcoming pro basketball back to Winnipeg. So I think my question is, how did that all come together, Todd?
Just received a request, and I wanted to do my part. I'm excited that Winnipeg is a great basketball city, and it's really cool that there's pro basketball back there. So they just asked for a little comment, and I was happy to do it. So I'm glad to hear that the attendance was good, and there was a lot of excitement. And I think the future is bright. So it's pretty cool that there's pro basketball back in Winnipeg. I think it's a great city and a great basketball city with a lot of history.
Sticking with pro sports, you grew up in Winnipeg, so you know how big hockey is here. And now you live in Seattle, where they have a buzzing team out there in the Kraken. So now that you're living out in Seattle, you're from Winnipeg. Who are you rooting for in a head-to-head game, the Winnipeg Jets or the Seattle Kraken?
I'll go with the Jets. I got a good buddy here who has season tickets. So if we're not playing the Jets, I'm rooting for the Kraken. But I'm Winnipeg through and through. I do I have some friends in Winnipeg that are season ticket holders, and so we've had a kind of a friendly rivalry. But in my heart of hearts, it's Winnipeg. But I am certainly have turned into a Kraken fan, and the team here has given us a lot to cheer for, and so has the Jets in recent years in Winnipeg. So I was desperately hoping for a playoff series between the Kraken and the Jets, and I wanted my friends to come here, and I wanted to go back for that. So I hope that will happen if the stars align, because that would be incredible.
Well, I'll stick with Winnipeg for my next one then. If you could bring one thing from your hometown, whether it's a restaurant or a certain place or something along those lines, if you bring one thing from Winnipeg to Bainbridge Island, that's where you are now, right?
Bainbridge Island, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you bring one thing from Winnipeg to Bainbridge Island, what would it be?
If I could bring it, I would bring it, and I have brought it. So what I want to bring from home that I couldn't get here was a decent Slurpee. I don't know if you guys realize that all across Canada, you guys are treated to wonderful Slurpees at 7-Eleven or Max or Circle K or wherever. And in the U.S., I really had a hard time finding a decent Slurpee anywhere in this country. So I talked to a guy, and I bought a Canadian Slurpee machine, and it feels like home. So I need to get it cleaned and serviced. But for a lot of years, if I wanted a good Canadian Slurpee, I just went to the game room and poured myself a Slurpee and played some pinball, and I kind of felt like I was back at 7-Eleven and home in Winnipeg.
That could be a side hustle for you in yeah. That could be a side hustle for you in retirement. You could be slinging out good Canadian Slurpees.
It's not a bad idea, and I know, I'm not sure. I mean, I think they're called Screamers in Canada. I know a Bridge Drive-In used to be able to get some ice cream and some Slurpee, and I know in Vancouver there's some places that did really well with Screamers. So talking to a buddy about the possibility of maybe opening something up and having some Screamers and have Canadian Slurpees with some soft serve ice cream and games. So we'll see what the future holds, but it's fun to think about.
In high school, our basketball team loved Screamers. There's a place not far from my house that made the best ones. I forgot all about them until you brought it up. That's awesome. Okay, you mentioned 7 feet tall. Other than basketball, what's the best thing about being 7 feet tall?
The best thing, obviously basketball is good. It's a pickleball. So pickleball was invented here on Bainbridge Island, where I live, in 1965. So there's a proud history here, and I'm playing in a league, and I'm in the playoffs with a college buddy of mine. And I think just 7 feet in height probably means that my wingspan is close to 7 feet. People just don't know how to play against someone who's 7 feet on a pickleball court. They expect to be able to hit it to that person, and I just reach over and I get it. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the game, but there's a kitchen area, and that kitchen area is 7 feet, and you're not allowed to volley in it, so you have to stand back. So most people have to wait to let it bounce, and when they try and do that, and they're waiting for me to let it bounce, I just slam it right back at them, and they think that's not fair. You're not supposed to be able to reach like that. So my youth in ping pong and my junior high badminton regional championship and my former athleticism are providing a unique challenge. I say this, and I just saw the draw for our league, and we have a chance in our next match But then on the side of our bracket, we're going up against, I'll call them the pickleball dream team. These two buddies of mine. If they weren't nice, I would not look forward to it. They beat us 15-2, 15-2, and it was embarrassing. So there's this level, and then there's us. And so we were already fighting for second place, but it looks like we'll probably get bounced before we even make it. So anyway, that's the best thing about being 7 feet tall is perplexing people, and they try lobbing it, and then that doesn't work. They're like, I guess we can't lob anymore. So that's been fun.
And awesome. my final target score question, or target time. I should know what the name of our own segment is. My final target time question is: if you had to make an all-time Canada basketball starting five, Todd, who would it be? And just for some additional information for you, Joey and I actually we drafted our own Team Canada's all-time starting fives a couple episodes ago. And I drafted you, Joey did not. So just keep that in mind. I figured you should know that. So if you don't want to talk to Joey anymore, don't blame you. But just letting it out there. But if you had to make your own starting five, who would it be?
Let's go with Shea and Nash in the backcourt, and let's go with Rowan Barrett at the wing. Let's go with Mike Meeks at the 4. Let's put Bill Winnington at the 5. I guess that's 5, right?
Yeah, you can be the sixth man then. That works.
All right, I'll be the sixth man. I'll be the spark coming off the bench. So
there you go.
So I like that. Those are all great people. So I like that squad.
Nice, and a good mix of different eras too. So
yeah, it's fun to compare. It's like a video game. Throw everybody in there and see what happens.
Was that your last question, Tay?
That was my 5th one, wasn't it? Or was that my 4th?
I don't know. I thought. Well, I have one more anyway. Here's the bonus one if it hasn't been. Yeah. Okay, so your pickleball thing. This is a new thing to me. So, based on your skill set and your size, do you see yourself coming back as a pro pickleball player, or is the odds better that you own a pro pickleball team?
Neither of those are going to happen. I'm trying to go pro in pinball, but there's not a lot of cash in the game, so there's definitely more output. I think I won a tournament, but the parking cost me more. And then one other tournament I won, I needed to use some of the $50 winnings to engrave the trophy, so that didn't leave much. And I opened up the envelope to one winning one, and I ripped the $20 bill in half. And so there's not a lot of money in it. So I like pickleball up, but it's just a fun thing to do, and I don't plan on owning any pickleball teams, but it's fun. It kind of brings this community together on Bainbridge Island. We feel a lot of pride that the game was invented here, and we're trying to keep it alive, and it is flourishing here and in a lot of other places.
Well, pinball money sounds a lot like the money you make hosting this podcast.
Well, thank you.
Very accurate.
Thanks for doing what you're doing.
All right, that concludes Target Time. All right, Todd, thank you so much for making the time. We could talk to you for hours. I have a million questions. We have to have you back on the show because I have so many questions about your time in the NBA and players you would have played with. So hopefully you're willing to come back at a later date. But thank you so much for giving us your insight on this very exciting World Cup, FIBA World Cup bronze medal, and the exciting time ahead as they build towards Paris 24.
Well, it's been fun talking with you guys, and I throw this out there. If you find yourself in the Seattle area, there's nothing I'd rather do than have people over and introduce them to the game room and show them, let's see. So we got those ones over there, and then we got some more over there.
Holy cow.
Then there's there, and then in that room over there, there's 7 more, and then we have an outbuilding that has 20 more pinball machines, plus air hockey and skee ball and some driving games and lots of fun. So when people come over, I like to show them around the game room and I think a lot of people are surprised at the level of the complexity of modern games, the level of rules and strategy. People just kind of think you try and keep the ball alive and there's no skill. And it's a skill game, much like, I don't know what it's best to compare it to. Maybe billiards or darts, something like that. You can actually get really good at it, and then there's going to be some bad breaks. And like any great game, you don't want it to be completely skill based because then you could never beat someone that's better than you. So if you guys find yourself in Seattle, I love bringing people down here just to show them where the game has evolved to, and it's there's a whole bunch of people like me. I've been collecting for 20 years, and we've been so passionate about it. word's getting out. So the predominant pinball company in Chicago, they're just completing a move into a factory 50% bigger, and they are back ordered with games, and the industry is thriving. So it's pretty cool to see a resurgence and a renaissance of the game.
I actually think there's a pinball league in Winnipeg now with the Forks.
Just a couple years ago that came up, I think.
Yeah,
so maybe you have to make a trip out here.
I think it's David. His first name's David. He's a really nice guy. I met him at Pinball Expo in Chicago. I'll be going out there. I go out there every October, so I'll see him there. And I went to the Forks when I was in town, and I went to his other place, like Half Pint or something. It's maybe a brewery. He's got some games there.
Yeah, the brewery, yeah.
He's a super nice guy. He's super passionate. I guess things are going really well at the Forks, and he runs the league. So, and there's somebody else in the city that has maybe 50 pinball machines. I haven't met them yet. But there's a mega collector there, and so it's a really cool group of people worldwide, and we're all pretty jazzed when we meet other people that have the same passion. It's fun to play other people's machines.
Okay, we really have to have you back because now I got a million pinball questions, but I won't hold you any longer. Todd, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. We'll have you back soon.
Okay, I look forward to it. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good week.
Thank you for listening to the Target Score Weekly podcast. To stay up to date with Winnipeg Sea Bears and CEBL news, as well as future episode releases, follow Joey and Taylor on Twitter and Instagram at TaylorAllen31 and at Joey Slattery TV. And wherever you're getting the podcast, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.